Coming up next on Arizona Horizon is the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including the governor's reaction to comments made by the Attorney General regarding ICE and the state's Stand Your Ground laws. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Jeremy Duda from Axios Phoenix, Jessica Boehm, also from Axios Phoenix, and Wayne Schutsky from KJZZ Radio. All right, panel, we got a whole bunch to talk about today. First of all, thanks for joining us. A lot of it deals with ICE. Jeremy, we're going to start with you. This is the governor and the attorney general, both Democrats, not on the same track here. What's going on?
No, both Democrats have not always seen eye to eye over the past few years. There's been some friction there between Katie Hobbs and Kris Mayes, and you saw that this week with a lot of friction between Kris Mayes and an awful lot of people in the state due to some comments she made on 12 News talking about how folks might respond to ICE agents who are masked, plainclothes, no identification, which we've seen in other states. And we've seen people raise the concern in other states that if people don't know their law enforcement, they might take a shot at them. They think they can react in self-defense. Mayes took it a little further, though, and said, well, we're a very big gun culture state, and we have these very aggressive stand your ground laws, and started explaining that in terms of, I think, what some people viewed as a legal justification for, hey, if this happens, this is why it's legal, this is why, and because of these specific laws, people might be a little bit different here in Arizona than in, say, Minneapolis.
Yeah, it sounds like she was describing maybe a worst case scenario, but it wound up being not a great case scenario for her.
Correct. Yeah, there's been lots of, multiple police organizations. A lot of her, of course, Republican opponents have raised some serious concerns about why she felt the need to offer up that information and how it might be interpreted by people if we do have these large-scale ICE raids that we've seen in other places. What is notable is that I think Kris Mayes has tried to play it off as like, oh, this is just politics. This is just Republicans saying that that I did something wrong. But now you have the leader of her party, the governor, Katie Hobbs, saying that she should retract the statement and that it wasn't appropriate. And
also that she and other leaders need to turn down the temperature, I think was the governor's quote. If she's had to do as much explaining as she has, it didn't hit the mark.
Yeah, it's the old political adage, if you're explaining, you're losing.
Right.
So maybe even if she knew what Mayes was trying to get across, she maybe didn't get it across in the right way, kind of as Jeremy alluded to. Some of the points Mayes made in that interview, aren't wrong, though. We do have a lot more guns in this state, I think, than in a lot of the other states where ICE has been across the political spectrum. We've seen assault rifles at the Capitol in anti-Trump protests and a lot of, pro-Trump protests. We've seen lots of people have guns in this state, and it's not just Republicans. And that can create an uncomfortable situation when you have masked agents coming in and potentially violating people's rights.
Is that something, though, that needed to be said or something that needed to be amplified, or that's something, as the governor seemed to suggest, maybe you just turn down the burner a little bit? Yeah,
probably not something that needed to be said. Certainly probably not something that needed to be said in the way that she said it, because the way that especially her opponents on the right have characterized it is like basically giving kind of legal license to folks to say they were acting in self-defense, and obviously that is not what Kris Mayes.
I think she specifically said that that was not the case.
No, a number of times, and obviously self-defense laws, stand your ground, do not apply to law enforcement officers, uniformed, identifiable law enforcement officers, and Kris Mayes wasn't trying to say that. But the way, kind of the legal justification, as I said before, in a way that we did not see in other states where people have raised, probably a legitimate concern that folks might not always know that they're dealing with ICE agents, and it does kind of raise the temperature, as Katie Hobbs might say, at a time when we are bracing for possible sweeps and raids the way we've seen in Minneapolis. Tensions are very high with these shootings in Minnesota, and maybe. Governor Hobbs is saying maybe don't pour a little gasoline on the fire there.
But I think also what happened in Minneapolis, and this is a point Democratic Senator Priya Sundaresan made to me, actually proved Mayes' comments kind of prescient in that it was kind of in reverse. It wasn't an ICE agent getting shot, but it was someone legally carrying a firearm who was shot. And initially we saw the White House use that as a justification for the shooting, the fact that he had a gun at all. And so I think the question of what happens when ICE comes here, where a lot of more people legally carry, including concealed, given our permissive gun laws. That's a real consideration I think people need to have, is that we just have all these guns, we have this aggressive ICE tactic coming in, and those two things mixing may not end well.
Yeah, I think these are all relevant things worth discussing. I think where push comes to shove here, I think, is that Kris Mayes probably could have expected that her opponents, at the very least, would take this and make it into something that she did not mean it to be. And I think that kind of gets to this whole temperature conversation. But Wayne is right. We need to be having conversations about like what our laws look like as it relates to guns and masked agents, but maybe doing so in this way provided an opportunity to make this a much more complicated and difficult situation.
Sure. As one of the things we've heard over and over again over the past week with the Preddy shooting in Minneapolis is, well, it was like, well, he was licensed to carry a concealed weapon. Like, you don't need a license in Arizona. Anyone who legally owns a firearm can stick in their back pocket, stick in their waistband, put it under their jacket, whatever they want to do, and you have no idea, because this is a very, gun-friendly state. People in Arizona like their guns.
Wayne, we had a Senate resolution calling for Mayes to retract her statement and resign. I'm sure the Attorney General is giving that serious consideration.
Yeah, that resolution will be just about as effective as if President Trump gives her a call and asks her to resign. But it also expected. The Senate president happens to be running for the Republican nomination to run against Attorney General Mayes in the upcoming election.
Talk about that. Talk about the electoral impact of all this.
I think you're going to see a lot of ads coming up. And then as this race kind of ramps up, trying to pose that the Attorney General is anti-law enforcement. And obviously, as the top law enforcement official in the state, that could pose some problems for her. As mentioned earlier, she has lost the support of several law enforcement organizations over these comments. So if she was counting on some of those endorsements, I don't know how much voters are looking at like, oh, this union and that union. But if you can get a bunch of police officers together in an ad saying, we don't trust her, that could hurt her politically down the line.
Fallout, Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it could hurt her. It really just depends on like what's the top issue that people care about in November, which who knows. But I think that obviously always public safety is among the top issues, and so of course it could hurt her, as could a soundbite or a clip of some sort of Katie Hobbs saying this about her. I mean, this might hurt her with moderates in general as well.
Jeremy, we had student protests over ICE today. Lots of kids, high school, college, lots of kids out there. How many? Do you have numbers here?
I don't. I've heard I think all over the valley. I mean, I think we'll probably have to wait till for all the school districts to let us know, kind of a district by district, school by school, but probably hundreds, thousands. I mean, we have businesses all over town that pledged to stay closed today in protest of ICE. Lots of just general protest activity. I mean, speaking of the temperature going up, I mean, we definitely have seen it go up today.
Yeah, no work, no school, no shopping is the national effort, and apparently it caught hold a little bit here in Arizona.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of restaurants, as Jeremy mentioned, who either because they want to let their workers who believe in the protest go out and participate, or just as a protest to stay closed. But it's definitely notable because, I mean, as I explained to my 10-year-old when he was asking me about this, like, a lot of the major social movements in our country's history started with youth protests. Like, they've always played a central role. So when you're seeing young people pay attention and start acting like this, it's harder to politicize it and say it's one side or the other, because 16-year-olds they're just acting based on how they feel and what they think is right versus what's a left or a right issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I had that same thought as I was driving in, thinking that so many of the things that civil rights type protests that have occurred across this country started in schools, and it'll be interesting to see if this passion sustains. That's always the question. It's easy to do it one day. What happens next week?
Sure, and Wayne mentioned businesses closing down to let their employees take part in this. Some folks might not have a choice. I think it was down in Tucson, the school district. They just had so many folks calling in, using sick time, using paid time off to just take the day off to take part in this. And they said, okay, well, we don't really have enough people to have school today, so I guess we're all going to close. And that is how you start to really get people's attention and really kind of put the issue to the forefront.
We should mention Tom Horn, Superintendent of Public Instruction, had a brief statement saying that they should be done after school hours and that school personnel should not be involved during school hours. Not the most forceful statement you could make, I would think.
No, and it's expected, I guess,
Yeah.
but it's also kind of misses the point of protest, right? Like, you should protest, but only when it doesn't disrupt anything.
Yes.
Only when it's not really noticeable.
Yeah. All of this, and then we got what happened at Zips, the sports bar, sports restaurant chain around here in the Valley. 14 area sports grills, Zips grills, they were basically raided.
Right, yes. So federal agents summoned masks showed up across the valley and spurred a lot of widespread concern as we've all been kind of awaiting some larger scale immigration enforcement presence here in the valley. And so for a while on, was that Tuesday or Monday?
I can't even remember what it was.
It's been a long
Monday.
week.
This week.
This week
Yes.
sometime. No one really knew what was going on. And, there were people saying this is HSI, it's different than the other parts of ICE. And we were all a little confused as to what the operation was. We've since learned that it was related to immigration in the sense of forged documents and illegal employment.
And that's kind of different than the sweeps that we see, where it's just generally you're driving around town and looking for anyone that looks like they would be possibly here without the right papers. This was court ordered. This was a sweep. This was court ordered. These were search warrants that were served. This is a little bit different than what we've seen in other areas of the country.
That it was. In the U.S. Attorney's Office for Arizona on Monday evening, were very quick to say in their statements. I think all of us are like, these are not ICE sweeps. This is different. But to a lot of folks, I mean, to Jessica's point, people didn't really know. People, assumed, people who are anti-ICE, who don't like what they're seeing, they assumed the worst. They came out in full force. Everyone's ready, especially as we're kind of bracing for increased enforcement here. I was over at the Zips at Park Central Mall, and there had to be more than 200 people there, and no one had any idea what was going on. They just said, "Oh, ICE is here raiding. We know it's happening all over the valley." And we've talked a lot about the temperature is so easy to see. I think it was fairly peaceful compared to, I think we saw some incidents in some other locations, but it's so easy to see how the temperature goes up and how these things can get out of control. There were a few tense moments. It looked like everything was wrapping up, and then there were 2 HSI agents couldn't get into their truck. They locked their keys in or something, and they called about a dozen other HSI agents. They rolled up with the sirens and lights on, gas masks, and it started to get very tense. And I was starting to wonder if something was going to happen. Fortunately, nothing did, but it definitely got tense for a few
We
moments
did have
there.
pepper spray on Mill Avenue, the Zips there, and a couple of state lawmakers were down there.
Yeah, I believe Lauren Kuby and one other were down there trying to figure out what was going on, and they got sprayed. There was also a drive-by spraying at the Zips by my house at 32nd Street in Shea. So we're seeing some of the same tactics used. And HSI, it's worth noting, is kind of basically the investigative arm of ICE. So they are related agency divisions, if not the exact same thing. But I think this just goes to show the larger problem with how the Trump administration has been pursuing all of this. The community has lost trust, right? So they see masked agents and flak jackets and all this stuff, and they're not going, "Oh, it says HSI on his chest, not ICE." Like, they're saying, "Look what we just saw in Minneapolis. It's coming here. I don't trust that they're doing the right thing. So now I'm going to show up and make my voice heard." And it's that lack of trust that turns every possible situation into something combustible.
And we should mention there was a misuse of birth dates and social security numbers and these sorts of things to gain employment. That was the focus. That's where the search warrants and the court order came from.
Right. That was the crux of the case. And it's worth noting that this had been going on, I believe, since March of last year. It was a year-long investigation. But, I mean, to the point that both of you have just made, it's a distinction without a difference to people who are concerned about immigration enforcement. And to everyone that saw that unfolding, who had that concern, that's exactly where their mind went. And, it was an immigration-related case. So it wasn't without context.
And real quickly here, before we get off of the ICE situation, there was a shooting down in Arivaca. And again, initially it was ICE shooting, near deadly ICE shooting in Arivaca. Well, we find out later their smuggling was involved, and there were people, people running through the desert, that sort of thing. Different than, again, what you're seeing in Minneapolis and in other parts of the country.
Sure, different even than what we saw with the Zips raid, where this is a situation where you have, someone who had escaped from federal custody, I think, in December after a conviction for human smuggling-related offenses, felony record, had been involved in an incident that morning, ran off. And they found him again, tried to pull him over. He allegedly fired a gun at a helicopter. So this is something that 2 years ago, we'd have said, oh, yeah, of course, that's how they responded. And everyone would have gone on with their day and nobody really would have paid much attention. But now, at least at the start, you have to say, OK, well, what happened? Is it something that, are we seeing another Minneapolis? Or is it going to be another situation that's going to put people on edge?
That's what you were referring to.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that polling shows that, a lot of Americans still support the effort to, secure the border, make sure people are here legally. What we're seeing a huge tidal change in is the support for the tactics in doing so. And so something like that, which seems like you'd expect a Border Patrol operation down by the border, someone human smuggling, but then it's all the other stuff. It's the Minneapolis. It's what's going on potentially here that
sure.
people are against.
And during the presidential election, during the campaign, we heard over and over again from Donald Trump, is, oh, we're going to go after the worst of the worst. That's what the focus is going to be. And a lot of people voted for him based on that, and then over the past, they said, okay, this isn't what I voted for. No matter how many times you say the worst of the worst, people can see that's not really the case, and that says nothing about the actual tactics being used.
Wayne, back to you. The tax conformity at the Capitol, shifting gears radically here. It sounds like the second attempt by Republicans down there, this basically a way to use the current forms so as to not have people having to amend and do something later on. Is this going to go the way of the first attempt?
Oh, man. Hard to say. But I will say, yeah, just a brief breakdown. Republicans wanted to conform with most of the federal tax changes over the summer. Governor Hobbs had a more streamlined plan that wouldn't cost as much. She vetoed their big plan. So now they're saying, let's just go full conformity. So that's basically just adopting every tax cut. I think it cost over $500 million annually for the state in revenue. I don't imagine the governor is going to sign on the dotted line for this deal when she had vetoed the previous one. So I think we're going to continue to see some political football being thrown back and forth on this tax issue before we get a resolution maybe in a few months.
I was going to say, and the football's flying over the heads of taxpayers. Everyone's kind of delaying their returns unless you want to do your returns now and go ahead and do it again later if necessary.
Right. And there's some and we were talking about this before because I'm eager to file my taxes. I'm probably the only person. But I do think there's some confusion over if you are taking the standard deduction, you'll probably be fine. You can probably go ahead and file your taxes now. But there's so much confusion and people being don't file. There's this weird thing that you've never heard of, tax conformity, before. But trust me, it's going to impact you. And so who knows? But also does this delay returns? What happens as a result of all of this?
It delays everything, doesn't it, Jeremy?
It does, and they talk about, Governor Hobbs has said, okay, we're going to do this part of it that I want. It's in my bill. Then later in the session, we'll come back and do it in my budget. And now this bill's a little bit different than the one she vetoed, but it's still the same point where just her bill was scaled down. It didn't have everything that was in all the federal changes. So now there's this line in the sand that's been drawn saying, we'll do this now and we'll negotiate your stuff later. And how long do you let this drag out? And these two sides, they can drag things out a while. We have seen that over and over again. But I think taxpayers are just going to want some resolution. They're not going to care about the intricacies of the political football game being played over there.
Protests by CPAs now, are you hosing them down, or what's going on?
Yeah, because as Jessica alluded to, the changes that they're kind of debating are mostly for folks who take itemized deductions, business owners, small business owners, some of the wealthy folks. And so the vast majority of Arizonans, like the vast majority of Americans, take the standard deduction. They should be okay based on what we're seeing. All sides are calling for the same standard deduction increase. So, but again, the tax forms put out by the Department of Revenue don't match either plan that were put forward initially by Republicans or the governor. They now match this new plan that the Republicans put out, which is full conformity. So.
Right.
To bring it full circle to our previous conversation, you start getting a lack of trust. And when people have a lack of trust, they're going to wait and they're just going to kind of hands off until someone tells them this has been figured out.
And I'd point out with an election in November, people are going to be, the people who do have to refile, going to be doing it later this year. And as those early ballots start to arrive, they might say, who messed this up?
Yeah.
Who's to blame for this? As they're filling out the ballot with the governor and the legislators.
Speaking of the election, Jessica, we have an Arizona independent party. That's AIPDU.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. Hugh Lytle. Who is Hugh Lytle?
Hugh Lytle is he's a healthcare technologist, I would say. He has been an entrepreneur in the Valley for a long time. He has started multiple healthcare companies, and he wants to be the next governor of Arizona, running under the capital I Independent Party, not to be confused with independents, those of us who have not chosen to identify with a party.
He says he's going to bridge the partisan divide. He's there in case you don't like the Republican candidate and you don't like the Democratic candidate. Is that feasible? Is that viable?
I mean, this is the first test of the theory. You can't rule it out. But I think most party people are concerned that, if anything, he will be a spoiler who might change the course of the election depending on how many R's or D's he pulls into his lane.
Seems like he's going to pull more D's than R's, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, off the top, you would think, because the last time around when Katie Hobbs and Adrian Fontes and Chris Mays won, they did so by courting a lot of those moderate Republicans who weren't satisfied with the candidate coming from their party. So logically, that would seem to be the case. In terms of Lytle, also he claims to be a former ASU quarterback, and
Yes.
It's worth pointing out that when we reached out to ASU for comment, they said he was a walk-on who never recorded any game stats.
Well, all right. He played more quarterback than you did, though. Yeah.
I also recorded no game stats.
Okay, all right, that's true. Impact here on the overall. Well, I guess we gotta say impact on the general because we don't even know who the general's going to be yet.
Yeah, it's hard to say. First of all, what we have to see is, okay, this is not going to be difficult for him to get on the ballot. That's the entire point of this Arizona Independent Party, formerly the No Labels Party. What does matter more is once you get on the ballot, how do you get people to know who you are? Do you have the money to get that message out? Is anyone going to? He was talking, I believe, about spending some of his own money, but how much money are you going to spend to make a point? Obviously, he's not going to win. We all know that the winner is going to be Katie Hobbs or the Republican nominee. So who's going to give you money and how much of your own are you going to spend? And how much will people actually know who you actually are? If you see independent on the ballot, there's this kind of vision I think a lot of people have of independence, and Paul Johnson, the leader of the party, certainly has this of like, oh, you're kind of fiscally conservative and socially liberal and kind of meet in the middle on all these issues. But a lot of independents, they're very left-wing or right-wing. They're not necessarily this kind of meet in the middle. And so you see independent on the ballot, you have no idea what that means.
They're disaffected Republicans and Democrats, but they still have the little R and the little D there.
Exactly. And one thing Jeremy and I have been kind of like, we think of like the craziest things that can happen, right? In our news meetings in the morning. We've been like, what if you have some like really extreme candidates get into this Arizona Independent Party, where extreme right, extreme left, and then you have this you could have a different kind of spoiler if you end up doing that.
But you got to get out of the primary of the AIP.
Well, yeah, but maybe they will.
I guess so. I don't know. You've made my head spin on that one. Before we go, Wayne, light rail. Where is it going? Where is it not going? What's going on?
It's still going to the West Valley in 2037 by a different route. The Phoenix City Council bowed to some pressure from Republican lawmakers and put the kibosh on a route that was supposed to go around the Capitol, hit the I-10 out to the west side. And so in its place, they basically just moved up the date on another line that was going to happen anyway, that will go down Indian School through Maryvale to the west side as well.
And this is basically to appease Republicans at the legislature.
I'd say less to appease and more to avoid the possibility that they could just scuttle the entire plan. You remember a few years ago, they authorized the county to put a transportation sales tax back on the ballot and said, but you can't use any money to run light rail in the vicinity of the state capitol. And they weren't going to. They were staying around that no-go zone. In December, Senate President Peterson and House Speaker Montenegro sent the city council a letter and said, get a little further. Okay, remember we said this zone? Further away. We don't want anywhere near us. Just keep it as far away from the Capitol as possible. And then a lot of these council members, even ones who want to see it go to the Capitol, said, okay, what can they do to frustrate our plans? And Governor Hobbs, her administration said in the letter, said, well, we think you can still do this. They can't do anything to stop you. But even if you believe that legal analysis, which I don't know if they do, you also have to be very confident about who's going to win in November. And if it's, Andy Biggs or Karen Taylor Robeson or David Schweikert in office, they're probably not going to have the same legal analysis.
And the end result happened after, what, 9 hours of a city council meeting?
Yes, I believe it was, poor Jeremy had to watch it, but I believe it was after midnight when that came in.
That's
There's
like
just a few minutes past midnight, I believe, was when the final vote, and everyone went home. They were done.
It's like 72 years in human and dog. I mean, city council meetings are notoriously slow going, but holy smokes.
As our friend and Capitol Dean Howard Fisher likes to say, everything's been said, but not everyone said it. That's what it felt like towards the
Yes.
end of that meeting.
Yeah.
I started getting worried about these council members' home lives because none of them seemed like they wanted to go home. They just kept talking and talking and talking.
So, well, okay, there you go. But this still sounds like it's far from a done deal, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, this light rail plan, the one that they axed that was supposed to go down I-10, 2 years ago, everyone would have said that's happening in 2 years. And so these light rail plans are always, amorphous and can be changed. And so this one not happening till 2037 to the west side, that can't, that's kind of cold comfort for people on the west side who are saying we'd love this public transportation.
I was going to say, the first option was, I think, going to be rated like maybe 2029, something along. Now you got 2037, like 5% designed. Again, it all makes one's head spin. Panel, good to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, one last thing before we go. Arizona PBS is celebrating its 65th birthday today. So we thought we'd give a little birthday shout out to ourselves.
Broadcasting from the campus of Arizona State University, this is KAET Phoenix, Channel 8, your public television station.
You're watching Arizona PBS.
You're watching Arizona PBS, and your Arizona connection starts right here.
And now on to the next 65 years. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona PBS is made possible by the generous donations of our members, including gifts of real estate, like personal residences or vacation homes, income-producing properties such as rental homes or commercial